many or too few, not omitting even a scaffolding, or, if a single please be lacking, we can see the place in the frame exactly fitted and prepared to bring such piece in. In such a case, we find it impossible not to believe that Stephen and Franklin and Roger and James all understood one another from the beginning, and all worked upon a common plan or draft drawn up before the first lick was struck. It should not be overlooked that by the Nebraska Bill, the people of a state as well as a territory were to be left perfectly free, subject only to the Constitution. Why mention a state? They were legislating for territories and not for or about states. Certainly the people of a state are and ought to be subjected to the Constitution of the United States. But why is mention of this lugged into the merely territorial law? Why are the people of a territory and the people of a state therein lumped together, and their relation to the Constitution therein treated as being precisely the same? While the opinion of the court by Chief Justice Taney in the Dred Scott case, and the separate opinions of all concurring judges, expressly declare that the Constitution of the United States neither permits Congress nor a territorial legislature to exclude slavery from any United States territory, they all omit to declare whether or not the same Constitution permits a state or the people of a state to exclude it. Possibly this was a mere omission, but who can be quite sure if McLean or Curtis had sought to get into the opinion a declaration of an unlimited power in the people of a state to exclude slavery from their limits, just as Chase and Macy sought to get such a declaration in They remind us that he is a very great man, and that the largest of us are very small ones. Let this be granted, but a living dog is better than a dead lion. Judge Douglas, if not a dead lion for this work, is at least a caged and toothless one. How can he oppose the advances of slavery? He don't care anything about it. His avowed mission is impressing the public heart to care nothing about it. A leading Douglas Democrat newspaper thinks Douglas's superior talent will be needed to resist the revival of the African slave trade. Does Douglas believe an effort to revive that trade is approaching? He has not said so. Does he really think so? But if it is, how can he resist it? For years now he has labored to prove it a sacred right of white men to take Negro slaves into the new territories. Can he possibly show that it is a less sacred right to buy them where they can be bought cheapest? And unquestionably, they can be bought cheaper in Africa than in Virginia. He has done all in his power to reduce the whole question of slavery to one of a mere right of property, and as such, how can he oppose the foreign slave trade? How can he refuse that trade in that property shall be perfectly free, unless he does it as a protection to the home production? And as the home producers will probably not ask the protection, he will be wholly without a ground of opposition. Senator Douglas knows, we know, that a man might rightfully be wiser today than he was yesterday, that he might rightfully change when he finds himself wrong. But can we, for that reason, run ahead and infer that he will make any particular change of which he himself has given no intimation? Can we safely base our action upon any such vague inference? Now, as ever, I wish not to misrepresent Judge Douglas's position, question his motives, or do aught that can be personally offensive to him. Whenever, if ever, he and we come together on principle so that our great cause may have assistance from his great ability, I hope to have interposed no adventitious obstacle. But clearly he is not with us now. He does not pretend to be. He does not promise to ever be. Our cause, then, must be entrusted to and conducted by its own undoubted friends, those whose hands are free, those whose hearts are in the work, who do care for the result. 2 years ago, the Republicans of the nation mustered over 1,300,000 strong. We did this under the single impulse of resistance to a common danger, with every external circumstance against us, of strange, discordant, and even hostile elements. We gathered from the four winds, and formed and fought the battle, though under the constant hot fire of a disciplined, proud, and pampered enemy. Did we brave all then, to falter now? Now, when that same enemy is wavering, dissevered, and belligerent, the result is not doubtful. We shall not fail if we stand firm. We shall not fail. Wise counsels may accelerate or mistakes delay it, but sooner or later the victory is sure to come. This is the full transcript of Abraham Lincoln's House Divided speech delivered in the Illinois House of Representatives at Spring